This is a part 2 video in response to my variable Bloodied build. If you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest you check that out now. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the legendary weapon variants I've had success with while using this variable Bloodied build. I'm also going to be going over the weapon types and mutations used to make the build. Timestamps will be included below for reference later on. Let's get started. Like I said in my previous video, the main upside to my Bloodied melee build is that there's a lot of different types of weapons that are equally effective to use. Your obvious choices are Bloodied. It's a straight damage increase since your health is going to be hovering around 20 to 30% always, so this is almost always the best bet. Instigating is a great second option as it increases your first strike's output. Since you deal a lot of damage already, you want to take out your enemy as quickly as possible. Depending on the weapon, a good instigating weapon can prove more useful than Bloodied. You want to keep an eye out for the really heavy hitting melee weapons such as the sledgehammer, so again, a great second option if you don't have a Bloodied weapon. Vampire is my personal choice for this specific build, since I had to make a lot of sacrifices to damage output in order to incorporate the different weapon types. It could be difficult to take out enemies in one shot. This is a great second option as now it might take you 3 shots to kill a super mutant. You gain health regeneration for every hit with vampires. This really helps your survivability, and I will take that over a little extra damage. If you find yourself dying a lot while using a Bloodied build, you might want to try it out. You might be surprised at the results. Now, suppressors is kind of a last resort if you don't have any of the above legendaries, but it still offers good benefits. If you're up against a tougher enemy like a Sheep Squanch or Scorch Beast, Wendigo, Colossus, it not only helps you stay alive, but also helps out anyone that's there helping. For example, when I started playing on the PS4 and just starting to make a Bloodied melee build, I didn't have any strong weapons yet, but I did have a suppressor's weapon, and when I brought it to the Scorched Earth event, it was actually very useful. For the second legendary effect you want for a melee weapon, it's almost always going to be swing speed. There just isn't another legendary effect out there for melee weapons that are just as good as swing speed. It is more fun to play and it allows you to do more damage. As far as the third one, +1 strength is probably the best one for you, but again, it's up to RNG, so whatever you can get, you're fine. Don't worry if you don't have it. You really want the first and second legendary effect to be the good ones. The third one is just more ancillary. Different guns work for different situations, and the great part about it is as you discover great legendary weapons, you can test them out with the build and see if they work or not. What I found is most of the ranged weapons that have high damage output and low rate of fire are the good ones. For example, a hunting rifle, lever action rifle, revolver, etc. with the right legendary effect are what works best for my builds. Again, this build isn't specifically a rifle build or a pistol build, so it doesn't have the needed perks that give it the crazy damage boost, allowing you to use all the different weapon types. You're only really allowed certain weapons that do a lot of damage that you can fit into this build, so it really does require a lot of testing. The legendary variants that I found to be the most successful are Bloodied. Obviously, this is just like the melee weapons. This is your go-to legendary effect, no other explanation needed. Instigating is the same for the reasons that I said above. If you use an instigating lever action rifle with the rifle part in my first video, it works really well, but instigating handmade rifles are pretty much useless. 2-shot is always a great alternative if you don't have a Bloodied weapon yet. Most are viable and some can even beat Bloodied weapons. The second legendary effect you want on your ranged weapons are explosive. Obviously, it got nerfed way back in the beginning, but it's still probably the best legendary effect you can get in the second slot. And for the third slot, again, it's just whatever you can get your hands on, whatever fits your playstyle, whatever you want more. It's fine. It doesn't really benefit you too much. The ones you want to look out for is the first and second slot. This next section will be focused on the legendary armor effects you're going to want, and honestly, it's pretty straightforward and standard from what other Bloody builds use. Most people like to go straight unyielding for the special stat increase, and while that is a really tempting choice, I find that using 2 to 3 bolstering armor pieces offer the perfect amount of damage resistance to keep you alive from some of the tougher enemies. Without the bolstering pieces, I was always getting destroyed by max level Gutsies and other high stab damage opponents. The bolstering helps me survive, and it really helps when I'm using a vampire weapon. The second effect you want for each of your armor pieces is probably faster action point refresh speed, since dodgy is in most of the builds and this perk just got even more powerful in a recent update. Having action points always is important. If you aren't lucky enough to get a full set of those, you can pretty much choose what you want for the others and it will be fine. Getting your armor is the hardest part of this build, as it's completely luck based, and unless you're able to trade or buy it off someone, you have to craft or hope you find it. This is going to be probably the longest part in your process of getting this build together, especially if you're one to play solo. You don't do a lot of trading. Getting all these pieces together is a real grind, but don't worry, that's the whole point of this game and this build, is grinding and just playing and waiting until you stumble across it. So don't get discouraged, just keep working, and eventually you're going to have a full set like me and a lot of others out there. Someone in my previous video had asked what legendary perks I used for this build, and I'm going to be completely honest, when legendary perks were added into the game, I had stopped playing. I logged back in to pick up the perks and see what the options were, but I had never really tested most out. So I'm going to preface this by saying that there may be other legendary perks out there that you find more useful. I'm just going to state the ones that I think that are best for this build and what I have frankly liked using the most. Far and away, I think Ammo Factory is the must-have perk for this build, because you're going to need a lot of different ammo types, and some are heavy. You might not want to carry them in your stash or on your person, so having to quickly craft enough to do a certain event or do something is important. When you pair this with Ammo Smith and Super Duper, it gives you real results and can save you from making another trek for more lead down the road. It doesn't offer any other benefits other than I find running out of ammo extremely frustrating. Hack and Slash is another great perk for your melee portion of this build. When fully upgraded, half of your VATS attacks will cause an explosion to everyone around them. It's not only satisfying to run into a group of enemies and VATS explode on them, it's very useful and does deal a moderate amount of damage to surrounding enemies. When they nerfed explosive damage, I assumed this was going to not be as effective, but they really did a good job with this legendary perk, and I highly suggest you use it. While Far-Flung Fireworks doesn't proc as often as Hack and Slash does, it does affect all ranged weapons, so it benefits every other aspect of your build. For the rest of your legendary setup, you can really choose what you want. Some have more benefits than others. If you prefer to play more melee style, then something like Retribution might work better for you. If you'd rather have more Perception or any other special stat, you can go with those legendary perks, and that might benefit your playstyle more. I keep saying this, but this is what makes this build so great. It's open-ended, and depending on how you want to play, you can make it happen. And finally, I'm going to end this video by talking about the mutation I used to make this build happen. It's not going to be anything crazy or interesting, and you may already have these mutations already. I just wanted to include this part for any new players interested. My mutations are Adrenal Reaction, Bird Bones, Healing Factor, Marsupial, Speed Demon, Talons, and Twisted Muscles. The must-have mutations to make your experience better are the ones that directly benefit your damage. These include Adrenal Reaction, Talons, and Twisted Muscles. These are the ones you're going to want to get first. The rest are more quality of life and just make the game more enjoyable. This is why every build requires using the Class Freak perk in the Luck category. This way the negative benefits don't really affect your other builds. I have a video on how you can create your own mutations. Links will be added in the description down below. That's going to do it for this video, guys. I really hope you try out and enjoy this build, because honestly, the only reason why I still find myself jumping back into this game is my build. I've reached a point where my build is good using any gun I want and come across, and that's when Fallout games start to get really enjoyable for me. I love being the god walking through the wasteland, destroying everything I come across. Let me know what you guys think about my build in the comments down below. I'm really proud of it, but probably more than I should be. And I really do welcome any criticism and any way that I can make it better. Like and subscribe for more if you like the content. Thank you guys for checking out this video, and I will see you in the next one.